Now this is something that I had mentioned in the very first of these videos, where I was doing a texture used to generate some tiles, and that there would be a bit of there would be some degree of seamlessness, mostly between neighboring parts of the texture. And at the time, I wasn't all that far. I was mostly doing a lot of tests. But I did find some time at some point a little while ago and push through it. And there's not only the color information, but there's normals going on here, and you can see that they're reacting to a light moving around. And this is, I took this and I put it into something, and it's working fairly well. It definitely replaced the horrid mess that was there before. This is actually built on a foundation, a geometric foundation, rather than just messing around completely with numbers. But I still have some work to do, because this is it looks nice when it's here in the tile itself, or in the texture itself, but once you start planting the tiles around, then they get separated and the lighting information is all off and everything. So I'm still working on that part. But it's much better than it was before. I've still got some... I was going over this in that video, and I was looking at all of the options. There was several of these. I can still customize most of them the way they were before. We can change this to wood. Looks all right. No, sorry. And what else did I have in that list? I had basic shading. Right. So I think this is what I managed to do on stream once. It's the same sort of idea as the metal, except much more basic. I don't think it is reacting a little bit to the light. That'll stop. So I like the metal one, but they're all decent. So I had several of these things that were used for testing or to make specific types of geometry. Yeah, that's a little bug, I guess. This is this is showing the wireframe of the quite dense wireframe of the mesh, and then the normals. Somehow I managed to... There's something where I'm not saying their position right. I guess that got out of sync, and they're not colored anymore. Or maybe it's just they don't like they might just not like the wireframe. Well, something got out of sync here. Quite literally, I guess, but in the code, because these were overlaying the positions where you see the mesh itself, and I was using that to verify, okay, all the meshes, the normals are pointing in the right direction, so they should be picking up the right light. A few of these I showed. Oh, the callbacks that I should be showing here. These are used to, what are they used for? I believe the, probably that wasn't extremely visible, but you can do things like disturbing the normals and the positions as you're generating the geometry. So that's what these callbacks are for. So half arcs and half arc wide and everything, those are for determining whether you have a full cylinder or a semi-cylinder or a quarter cylinder, and whether it should be fat all the way or if it should narrow down as it goes there. I was using that as different ways to stitch together different shapes. So the shaders, let's see. And I also had all kinds of testing. So for instance, those are my shapes that I was using. These are my shapes that I was using to test these features. Or rather, these shapes isolated before. They're not gluing together everything. This is, for instance, the one in the middle is a curved cylinder plus two triangle shapes meshed together in the corner. The one on the left is a cylinder, but it's straight down, and the normals aren't getting very well jittered, so it doesn't look. It's a different sort of metal look, but it's not. I don't think it looks as good. In these shapes, they're very curved, so I'm applying noise to the normals to give it this kind of brushed effect, or not brushed, sort of scratchy metal, I guess. But yeah, the normals are all the same for every vertical stripe, so you don't see as much of interest there. Oh, and there's some very basic tests in here as well. I think I showed these in something before. Right. So these are just to make sure the shapes are following some pattern. I moved from Bezier arcs to Hermite curves because these were okay in those isolated tests, and you couldn't really tell that they were off at the sides. But once I started stitching them together, it was obvious that there were discontinuities, and so I rewrote them as Hermite curves so that the tangents could be pointed in the same directions at the ends, and that gave the continuity we have here now. I think that about covers what I did with this. So I'll leave that for now and be back with something else.